Morning, everyone. It's like 7:30 in the morning. I'm doing a brake job on my Subaru, but I'm just replacing the pads. And I thought I'd show you guys how to do it. It's really simple. Inexpensive if you do it yourself. And I hope everyone's being safe with this COVID-19 going on. But let me show you what I'm going to do here. It's a 2008 Subaru Outback. And a lot of people may not realize, I want to point this out, is most cars today that are made don't have a frame underneath. What it is the under part of the body is actually part of the frame. It's called monocoque. And so when you jack up a car, there are jack points on a car. And this is it right here. This is for the front end. And then the rear end has the same thing right there. If you jack up the car in a different place, you could damage it. So you definitely want to use these jacking points. When you look at the jack in your car, you'll notice it has a slot that can go around this piece that's hanging down. So what I use are 2 blocks of wood for my floor jack, and that seam, that was the word I was looking for, goes in between here. But pads, slide grease, tire iron, and some sockets, that's all we need to replace the pads. Oh wait, no, there's another tool. I'll grab it. And gloves, that's all we need really just to do the brake pads on this car. A C-clamp was the other part, other tool that you need when you're doing the pads in the car. So let's get started. First things first is you want to loosen your lug nuts while the car is on the ground. You don't want to jack up the car and try to loosen the lug nuts, because the wheel will actually turn on you regardless of the type of car. So I'm going to set the camera up and start on this. You just want to break the lug nuts loose. Alright, now it's loose. You can jack up the car. Now the tire's off the ground. Usually I would use a pneumatic air gun, but because this is very early in the morning, I don't want to wake up my children. So we're just going to do this the old manual way. So, when changing pads on any car, there's two bolts, okay, that hold the caliper on. There's this bolt, and then there's one on the opposite side. See if we can get it right there. And then here's the other one. There we go. Okay, so you just loosen one, take the other one off, and this caliper will flip up. Okay, so that's what we're going to do now. Boy, the sun's so bright I can't see the camera. Now I'm using a breaker bar, which means it just helps me. It's longer than a ratchet. There's the ratchet, you can see the difference in length. So I'm using leverage. And that's the bolt that holds it on, so it's not something that's large at all. Now I'm going to take the caliper off completely. I want to show you something that you need to check when you're doing this. When the bolts are in, the caliper floats over your disc, and this is the part that floats. And so I'm taking the whole caliper off just to be sure these are not frozen in place, and they still float quite easily. is a rubber boot that's over it, and you want the rubber boot to be sure that it covers the whole thing. This is why we wear gloves when I do this, because it's messy. So here are the pads. Not worn out too bad on this side. That one's not too bad either, but they're starting to get noisy. So I wanted to take the opportunity to change them out. So, let me put the camera down. Continue on here. New pad kits that come with these. They'll give you new braces. Those go here, up here, and then of course new pads. The reason I'm changing these pads is there's a sounding of like metal against metal. So whenever I hear that noise, it's time to change the pads. Now looking at these calipers, I know they're going to need to be replacing, because when I apply the brakes very slowly, the wheel wobbles. So that tells me it's time to replace the pads. So these are the brackets. They're stainless steel, and your pads slide on them. At least they're supposed to. Top and bottom are the same, and they click in. Or press in. Alright, the brackets are in here. Seal glide grease, brake grease. This is applied up in here in the grooves that the shoes sit in. That way the brake pads can slide. You want to be generous with it, but try not to get it on the caliper. If you get it on the caliper, then you're not going to stop. Alright, that's done. Now we're going to put our pads in. So again, I'm taking the same grease and I'm applying it to the ends of the pad here. and the back of the pad. I called this a caliper, didn't I? I meant to call this a disc. Discs will need to be replaced. All right. One pad in. I want to show you something here. It's different between the two pads. This here is what I call a squealer. When the brake pads get too low, you start hearing your brakes squeal. That's because of this. One goes on one side and one goes on the other. So I already have it here. That means this one goes on the other side of the car. The reason why it goes on the other side of the car is not all calipers close evenly. It's not uncommon to have one side of the car where you still got thick pads on there, and then you go to the other side and there's almost nothing. There. Shoes are in. Next step. Using the C-clamp, the caliper needs to be squeezed in. It's not going to go right over these shoes. So let me set this up. I'll show you what I do with the old shoes. Using the old shoes and the C-clamp, I turn the C-clamp and I squeeze the caliper back in. It's hard to do this with one hand. And there you go. The caliper squeezed back in. So now I just loosen the C-clamp. I use the worn out brake shoes to do that with. And now I'm going to take more of this goop, more of the slide, okay, and I'm going to apply it here. Why? Because this is what's against the shoes. Let's see here. and also against here. Alright, that's it. So pads are in, everything's greased up. Time to put this back together. And out. Now, just retighten your bolts. I don't crank the bolts down, but I make them pretty snug. Heck. Bang. So I hope that helps. The pads are $25 and that takes me, without a camera, 15 minutes, 25 minutes. So both sides I can be done in within 45-50 minutes. And that's it. So hopefully that helps you guys who want to save a little money and doing some of your own DIY work. Just big guy DIY. Stay safe. Please wear that mask, because some of us, like me, get this virus is pretty much a death sentence due to pre-medical conditions. So you don't want to kill someone else by being absent-minded. All right. Thank you. Thumbs up if you liked it and if it was informative. Any questions, post them in the comments below. And stay safe. Be well. Bye.